this over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Jean. Good morning and welcome. We're happy to have so many of you join us today. Most of you know me already. I'm Michelle Elliott, Chairman of the Professional Development Team, and I'll be moderating our panel today on why a realtor should set up an LLC and or an S Corp. If you've attended our virtual events in the past, you know this event is being recorded and all of our attendees are currently muted. If you do have a question, please use the chat button located at the bottom and we will have folks monitoring that chat and address your questions as they pop up. I want to welcome our panel guest today, attorney Jeff Reilley with Reilley Law Firm and CPA Paul Griz with Lighthouse Tax and Consulting. Thank you, gentlemen, both for joining us today. This presentation is very timely as many of our realtors have navigated through COVID-19 and possible small business loan options. It became more clear to a lot of us that we should consider an LLC, even though the independent contractor was protected through the stimulus. However, it's much more than that, and that is why we have Jeff and Paul on with us today. So let's go ahead and get started. Jeff, so before we get into the tax benefits of an LLC or an S Corp, what do you think are the risks a realtor is taking without forming an LLC, and what do you think the legal benefits are?
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate you guys having me. Like Michelle said, I'm Jeff Reilley from Reilley Law Firm. So when we're looking at the different entities you can form, the main thing we're looking at is we're talking about the title here is LLC or S Corp, but it's really an LLC is your entity, and I think Paul will touch on later. The S Corp is really the tax classification of the entity. You can, and some older businesses may be formed as a corporation or an Inc., as some will call it. But generally now, the ease of use of an LLC is the way to go. It's just a little less formal, a little less documentation that's needed when you form it. As far as the reasons a realtor may want to form an LLC for their business, the main thing is reliability protection. I mean, the bottom line is you're trying to shield your personal assets from any liability issues that may come while you're running your business as a realtor. For example, if we have Michelle as a realtor and she were to sell a house to Joe Smith, and after closing there's some major construction defect found, and Joe sues Michelle, then whether or not he's right or wrong about the issue, she's at risk of her personal assets being part of the lawsuit and having to, if there's a judgment against her, having to pay out of her personal assets if she doesn't have an LLC in place. If she has formed an LLC, is running her business as an LLC, then she's going to have some protection for her personal assets, to where the only recourse a client could have would be against the business itself and not her personal assets. So that is bottom line, the main reason why you would want to form an LLC as a realtor. From the legal side, it's liability protection, protecting your personal assets. And as long as you're keeping everything as a business and running everything through your business, you're going to be protected from your personal assets, going to be protected from any liability that may result from your business.
Okay. So I think we all would agree that's a little scary. So it's always important to reduce our legal liability and to get that set up. So I'm going to jump over to Paul. We've heard some of the legal benefits. So can you share with us some of the tax benefits of having an LLC?
Yeah, sure, Michelle. Thank you for having me. Again, I'm Paul Griz with Lighthouse Tax and Consulting. We have probably, I don't know how many tax clients who are real estate agents, and most of the time we recommend that they do an S corporation. So basically what happens in S corporation, we have a certain time frame in order to start an S corporation too, by the way. And so we have 2.5 months to start the S Corp and file form of 2553. So there is a window of time in order to establish the S Corp, but we have so many real estate agents who actually can benefit from the S Corp. First off, what you want to look at is your automobile purchase. So there's really good tax deductions for the automobile purchase. And what you have is a scenario where most of the agents are, driving for listing presentations, selling property, and so forth. So what we see with the S Corporation is you're able to capture really the auto and truck expense for these real estate agents through the auto expense deduction. So that's one thing you're going to really want to look at with regard to an S Corporation, because what you can do is you can actually purchase a vehicle, use it 100% for business, and if that vehicle weighs more than 6,000 pounds, you can actually deduct the full cost of the vehicle. So it's a huge tax savings for real estate agents, and that vehicle could actually be new or used, and you get a full write-off for it. Now, if the vehicle's less than 6,000 pounds, there's certain depreciation limits that apply, but real estate agents are going to really want to look at their vehicle use and their vehicle ownership and how they deduct that ownership of that vehicle. So that's a huge deduction for real estate agents. And then secondly, the other thing that we work with our clients is for deductions would be retirement funding. There's so many different retirement vehicles that can be used for retirement purposes, and you also get a full deduction for those contributions. So these are things that real estate agents are going to really want to look at with regard to S corporations, because S corps have a number of different deductions that are available to them if they operated as an S corp versus if they operated just as a sole proprietor. So I highly recommend that folks look at the use of an S corporation, because you're able to take additional deductions with regard to the S corporation, just in the vehicle use and just in the retirement funding. And then lastly, the other thing that they're going to want to look at with regard to an S corporation, an S corporation owner is required to pay a payroll. And so there's a lot of discussion on what the payroll amount should be. So what happens with that scenario is the real estate agent is going to be able to save on FICA, on payroll costs. And so there's a safe harbor election that allows them to save some money on FICA, which is Social Security and Medicare. To give you an example, if you had a real estate agent who, say, grossed about $100,000 a year in sales commissions, that individual could save up to about $8,000 to $9,000 just in payroll costs because of the use of the S corporation. So again, I highly recommend that real estate agents look at the use of an S corporation versus just being a sole proprietor, just because, again, of the vehicle usage, the retirement funding, and the opportunity to save on FICA. If you did those savings, those deductions each and every year for a period of 10 years, and then take those savings that you did from that particular year just by the use of those three things we just mentioned, if you took that money and invested it into another retirement plan, and let's say that money were to double over a 7-year period, the real estate agents would be able to really derive their own pension, right? So a lot of opportunity if you were to implement these tax strategies, and then to implement them over a period of time, you could really develop a nice little pension for yourself.
So thank you, Paul. I feel like I'll be calling you after this meeting, but probably like a lot of people on here will be calling both Paul and Jeff. So you talked a little bit about write-offs for automobiles and tax deductions. And I know there's a lot, but can you just talk a little bit or expand a little bit more about any other type of maybe like receipts that we should be keeping? I know I don't want to go into too much detail, but if you can maybe generalize those.
Yeah, great question. Super question, actually. So what's required is that you do need to keep a copy of the receipt of the invoice matched with the actual credit card statement that was used to pay it. So I also recommend a lot of folks get a separate credit card. A separate bank account obviously is going to be needed with the S corporation. So basically, when Jeff sets up the LLC, we put an S corp election on there. What the folks can do then is take the EIN number and a copy of those article of organization, take those two things to the bank and open up a bank account for the S corporation. So it'll give you a little bit more organization so that you can operate all of your checks that go through your sales commissions would go through this new bank account, and then you just begin to pay all your bills through this new corporate bank account as well. And so you'd be able to document then the inflow of the money from the commissions and then also the outflow of the money from the expenses. And you would have a record of what's happening with the S corporation just by documenting the 12 months of bank statements of this new S corporation. But yeah, you definitely need to have that organization set up the new bank account, run all your commission checks through there. You basically want to get with your broker to make sure your broker now is paying those commission checks to your new EIN number, your new S corporation. And you simply make those deposits into that new bank account, then you'd pay your bills out of that new bank account. And so you'd have documentation then of your revenue and of your expenses. Thereby you'd be able to assemble your own financial statements at year end.
Okay.
That's the first thing that they're going to want to do, just to try to simplify the bookkeeping work, if you will.
Great, thank you for that, Paul. And we have a quick question for you. So you mentioned a 2.5-month time limit to file the S Corp. What does that mean, and when does that time limit start?
Yeah, great question, because this is really important actually. So I'm glad somebody actually asked this question. So let me give you an example. Let's say Jeff started an LLC and we put an S Corp election on it as of just say July 1st of this year. July 1 of 2020 would start the clock. And so we would have 2.5 months in that duration of time from July 1, 2020, and that would obviously take us out to September 15th. So in this scenario, in this example, July 1 to September 15th, we would need to file the S Corp election, which is Form 2553. And that would allow us to be treated as an S corporation on July 1 of this year. Now, if we miss that window, what happens then is we will only be available to elect S Corp treatment on January 1 of the next year, of the following year. And so the reason why that's important is if somebody misses that initial window, then we have to actually be treated as a sole proprietor, which is a Schedule C taxpayer in this year of formation. So that's not a good thing, because we're going to miss out on some savings that I just mentioned. But I highly recommend folks just give me a call on that one, because that's an important date we don't want to miss. And it's just a matter of filing the correct paperwork with the IRS within a certain period of time.
Okay.
Great question.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, back to you, Jeff. So now that we kind of have an idea of some benefits, the liabilities, forming the LLC sounds fairly simple, but it's mostly wise to reach out to you and to Paul to get this started. So what are the first steps, Jeff, that we need to take to maintain and manage the LLC?
All right. So once you decide you're going the route of the LLC, which I think if you're listening to what Paul has to say with all your tax savings, whether you're worried about liability or not, I think it's clear it's a route you should go. The first step is really just picking a name. You can name an LLC something as simple as, Michelle Elliott LLC. I've done it for, some realtors in the past. It depends on how you're going to use it. There were some questions that came across before this started. I think someone asked, does it matter, the LLC meaning in the name of is it market sensitive? I think it depends on how you're going to use it. If you want to use it as part of your marketing plan, you could potentially, use some name that you put on the business card, or if you're just going to use it more as the name that you're going to use as a vehicle for the business to just run the taxes through, it can be as simple as just your name, Realtor LLC. and you're just out there doing business as yourself. But the name itself is really not that important unless you're using it for the marketing side. Gene did talk about did want me to talk about the law on teams. If you're a team and if you want to, there's certain restrictions in the code that do not allow you to use the name realty, real estate, or realtor in your team name. I think it's trying to keep you under your brokerage firm. They don't want you to put yourself out there as a team that's not actually that someone confuses you as your own real estate brokerage firm when you're actually acting under your brokerage. So I think your advertising rules require you to actually have your brokerage firm as part of your advertising, and not just have your team name out there separate from your brokerage. But so back to the form, you're gonna pick a name. We're gonna file an article of organization with the state, which is a simple 2-page form, which we can e-file the day that you give me the name and an address that you're gonna use. We can get a tax ID number with just your social security number and your address and a phone number. You can go online and do all that. And at that point, your LLC is formed. Paul talked about the form 2553. That gets filed, like Paul said, within the 2.5 months. That gets filed. You get a confirmation from the IRS that your S Corp is approved, and then you're up and running, starting, opening up business accounts and credit cards, as Paul mentioned, and moving from there. Operating agreements are potentially something you want to look into getting. If you're a single member LLC and it's just you running the business, I would say you don't necessarily need to get an operating agreement. It's really just an agreement of how the business is run. Some banks, when you're opening a bank account, may ask you for an operating agreement. It's simple enough to form if they really, really want you to have one. But like I said, if it's just a single member LLC and you're running your own business as your own realtor, you don't really need to have an operating agreement. If you're running it as a team, if you're going to have employees outside of yourself, then maybe you do want to have that operating agreement in place. Just and other members that maybe own the business with you as the team, then you have that operating agreement in place that really governs how you run your business, which is your LLC. But the formation, like I said, it's very simple. It's very quick, and you can have it up and running within a day, assuming you've got the time to do it. If you want to look for a name that you're trying to use and want to know if it's available, the Secretary of State's website is where you would go. There's a little search on there, and you search for existing businesses. You put in the name you want to use. It'll pop back really quickly and tell you if the name's available or not. Depending on how unique you get, if you go Hilton Head Realty, it's not going to be available. But if you're gonna go something unique with your name, it's probably available, and it can be used. Let me see. There was some other notes. Maybe that was. I think those were the only questions. Was there anything else that they wanted me to touch on the name?
We have another question that came in, Jeff.
Okay.
Can an individual set up an S Corp, or is an attorney required to set that up? And then also, can there only be one officer and/or stockholder in the S Corp?
Okay, so that was the difference what I was mentioning earlier between an LLC and a corporation. An LLC can be set up by anybody. You do not need an attorney to actually set it up. If you feel comfortable to go online and fill out the forms and send them into the Secretary of State, you certainly can do that on your own. If for some reason you wanted to form as the traditional corporation, which basically the ending of your name would be Inc. or Corp or something like that instead of LLC, that's articles of incorporation, and you actually do have to have an attorney that actually files that on your behalf. What was the second part of that question?
Can only one officer and/or stockholder be in the S Corp?
No. I mean, you can have as many as members as you want. I think you'll have to follow your rules as a realtor. If it's a realtor business and you're running it through there, I don't know if you all need to be licensed, to own the business as a realtor, but I think you're acting as a realtor through your license. But you can have as many members of your business as you want.
Okay. So if I've set up my LLC already online, but I want to add the S Corp to it, do I need to Can I file Form 2553 on my own, or do I need you, Jeff, to help me with that?
I would actually, if I would recommend you talking to Paul or your CPA. I filed the 2553s for clients at CPA's recommendation for certain businesses if that's the route the CPA recommends that they go for the tax classification. But if you're going to do everything on your own, that tax classification is very important. I would make sure that you get that completed with your CPA and that you're getting taxed as an S corp, because if you don't do that, you're going to lose all the savings that Paul's explaining to you, at least in that first year, until you can get back to, I think Paul said January 1, the calendar year of being able to file it again. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple more questions, Jeff, and then I'll jump over to Paul. All right. The Michelle Davis one, I'm going to hold yours for Paul. If I set up an LLC, Jeff, for my real estate business, can another person operate other business under the same LLC?
Well, you certainly can run other businesses under an LLC. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, I think you're commingling businesses and assets and expenses, and I wouldn't, each LLC should be treated as its own business. So your business as a realtor is your business, and if there's something else in some other way of making income, I don't know what other business you would want to run through your realtor business. I guess. I mean, I've got a client that's a realtor and appraiser. Fine. I mean, he does appraisals and brings in income. He does a real estate. He brings in income. It's all run under the same business. It's all kind of the same. It's all kind of the same line of business. But I don't know. I wouldn't have another person come into my business. I mean, they would have to own part of your business. So I mean, as an LLC and Paul can touch on that from the tax side. But as an LLC, the distributions you're going to have to make out of that LLC are going to be based on your ownership percentages. So if one's bringing in money from one side and one's bringing it from another business, you would have to have that all set out in the operating agreement, and those profits would have to be shared.
Okay, thank you. So Paul, over to you. I have a couple of questions for you. And so does your vehicle have to be purchased by the LLC?
Yeah, that's a really good question right there. So whoever asked that one, good job. So yeah, 100% yes. The S Corporation LLC would need to be the owner of that fixed asset. So the S Corporation, the business will purchase the vehicle. You'll go to your auto dealer and you're going to purchase it right there in the name of the S Corp. And that's important because if the individual owned the vehicle, but owned also this S Corporation, you would only be able to get a mileage reimbursement expense from your S Corporation. So great question. Yes, the answer is 100% yes. The S Corp needs to purchase that vehicle. And let's talk about logbooks though with vehicles real quick. So if the S Corporation owns the vehicle, the S Corporation is still required to keep a logbook of those mileage. So a lot of people think just because it's a business asset that the logbook is not required. It's still required. This is the number one thing that pops up on IRS audits when I'm working with the IRS to defend clients in audits. The IRS always asks me immediately, they say, Paul, give me a copy of the logbook. And if we can't produce the copy of the logbook, the IRS will disallow the mileage expense. So very important to keep the logbook, even if it's a corporate asset or if it's an individual asset. If it's a corporate asset, you're going to want to track the business and the personal use still through the logbook. And if it's obviously an individual owned vehicle, then the individual would also maintain a logbook. I want to go back, if it's real quick here, if we have some time. So an S Corporation would file Form 2553. You can have up to one to 100 members for an S Corporation. If you go past 100 members, the S Corp acceptance will be disallowed, and that application would be denied. An S Corporation owner can only be an individual or an estate for 2 years. Many times when we're winding down an estate and dealing with estate income tax issues, the prior owner of an S corporation becomes an estate, and that state can still operate as an S corp for 2 years. Thereby, after that, it will also be denied S corporation status. So, real important that you only have 1 to 100 members in an S corporation. Going also back to Jeff's point with multiple companies operating within one S corporation or one LLC S corporation. I also agree with Jeff. I do not, I don't think it's a good idea to operate many different businesses inside of one single S corporation LLC, because number one, it causes a big problem for the recording of these different entities. And so what happens, most people will use QuickBooks or they'll use a different software, whatever it is, to track the revenue and expenses. And what happens is you kind of get this one large parent reporting entity versus breaking down the various businesses. And it gets really complicated in the bank reconciliations to go ahead and try to figure out, all right, where does this income go? Where does it go over here? And especially to Jeff's point, if you have multiple member LLC S Corps, and especially if there's operating agreements in place, it nearly makes the calculation of the distribution to these multiple members nearly, it becomes really more of a guess. And that's not what you're looking to do there. So multiple companies, definitely just go ahead and operate them as multiple different standalone entities. Really important to do that. So, that's typically what we see with the multi-member S corporations.
Paul, another question that came in. You do not have to be an S Corp to take advantage, or do you have to be an S Corp to take advantage of the vehicle discount, or can you be an LLC?
You still, so if you're just an LLC without an S Corp, so let's talk about that for just a moment. Let's say that Jeff starts an LLC and he goes ahead and files the paperwork at the state level, and now you're just an LLC, but you don't take the next step of filing the S Corp election. So what that means is that LLC will be treated as a disregarded entity. And that's all that means is that LLC will be treated just like a sole proprietor, and that real estate agent's going to report all of that activity on their Schedule C of their individual income tax return. And so you still get to use the tax deductions of a vehicle operation and the vehicle purchase through an S Corp or through a Schedule C as a disregarded entity. But there's a huge difference between, a lot of people will say, well, I started an LLC, and then they say from that point, what is it? So when you start an LLC, you really have 3 options, all right? Number one, if you're just a sole member and you don't do an S corporation, then your only option would be to be treated as a Schedule C disregarded entity, which would mean all of your activity would go on Schedule C. Secondly, if you have a multi-member deal, then you do have the potential then to be treated either as an S corporation or as a partnership. There's a lot of LLCs who have multi-members, and they can also be treated as a partnership. So really 3 options for tax purposes when you talk about LLCs. So you can, again, just be treated as a sole proprietor, you can be treated as an S corporation, or you can be treated as a partnership. But very important to have a pretty meaningful discussion on those different entities. And it's really kind of beyond this, I would say, webinar here, because there's so many things here that we could go into to make sure that the right entity for tax purposes is selected for the particular client, because there's just too many issues to go into. But there's 3 options though for an S corporation for tax, or excuse me, for LLC for tax purposes.
So Paul, if once a realtor speaks with you or CPA in general, and they determine that an LLC should be formed, so the next step would be then, once they've formed it, they should let their broker know and give them this new EIN number.
Yes, ma'am, right? That's correct. So okay. What happens is Jeff will start the LLC. He'll get that EIN number, and then you know, the real estate agent will go ahead and open up the bank account. But then that EIN number needs to be delivered to the broker in charge with the W-4 the W-9, so that the broker is going to go ahead and issue now the checks to this new S Corporation, LLC, whatever it might be, to this new EIN number.
Okay.
Very important that happens, yeah.
Thank you. And then I think we have one other question. This person says, I leased a vehicle for my personal use. When my lease ends, I want my LLC to buy it. As a new LLC with no credit history, I may have to buy it personally. Can I then sell it to my LLC? Boy,
Yeah,
that was a tongue twister. Hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, another great question. So what happens there in this scenario is, to answer this question, is your LLC can definitely purchase this vehicle, no problem. The LLC is going to own it. If there's a bank note on it, the bank is going to require the individual to personally guarantee the note. So the LLC, the title will be in the name of the LLC, and at the end of the day, the personal guarantee is going to be going against the individual. So for title purposes, the LLC is going to own the vehicle, but the individual is going to go ahead and personally guarantee the note. So that's the banks don't lend to LLCs, by the way. They only require personal guarantees on notes, and that's true even for real estate. We have a lot of folks who will purchase rental properties and they purchase it through the LLC. Banks don't loan to LLCs anymore, and they're going to require a personal guarantee. So yeah, sure, the title can be in the name of the LLC, but the personal guarantee is going to go against the individual. And
Okay.
so that's
Great question. I think we have one last one. So just to clarify, did you say that one person can only own an S Corp for 2 years?
No, yeah, great question. No, so no, what I was referring to there is an estate that is created on a date of a decedent's death. What happens is an estate is created, and you can operate the S corporation just for 2 years as the estate is winding down. All right. So no, an individual would actually own the S corporation for the individual's duration of that ownership, and there's no time period on an individual. I was just referring to, there's many times when you do have an S corporation, and at death that estate would operate for 2 years.
Okay.
Not very common, but it does happen.
Wow, some really great information today and awesome questions from the crowd. So thank you so much. Our time is kind of up, and so I just wanted to say thank you all again. And then it's very important for realtors to protect their assets and to have tax write-offs and tax benefits for their business. So Jeff and Paul, thank you guys so much for all of the information today, and we truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Watch your Sunday email, realtors, for more virtual presentations, and thanks so much and have a great day. Bye.
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 See you guys.